What's for dinner?
Oh, Alf, you just had lunch.
Your dinners highlight my day, Kate. But then again, I have no life.
Ha! I kill me. That's what a furry, cat-eating alien said every week from 1986 to 1990. And somehow, America couldn't get enough of it. NBC premiered a show about an extraterrestrial wisecracker who crashed into a suburban garage, moved in with the Tanners, and spent 4 seasons trying to eat their cat while cracking jokes that would make your dad proud. No heartwarming lessons, no special effects that didn't involve trapdoors and 3 guys under a stage. Just a puppet with an attitude and a family that probably wished they'd called Animal Control instead. Welcome to Alf, the show that proved you could build a hit sitcom around a character who literally couldn't leave the house, drank beer with children in the pilot, and made NBC executives sweat every time a kid with a microwave watched an episode. Today we're diving into 15 weird facts about a show that turned technical nightmares into appointment television, made its cast so miserable they fled the moment cameras stopped rolling, and somehow became one of the most beloved shows of the 1980s. Now, before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe because it really does help this channel. Now, let's rock with number 15. Number 15. NBC greenlit a puppet show because every single pilot they had just failed. When Paul Fusco walked into NBC President Brandon Tartikoff's office in 1986, carrying a brown garbage bag with a puppet inside, he was walking into the aftermath of the most spectacular failure in network television history. NBC had just wrapped the 1983 to 84 season, and they'd managed to do something no network had ever done before or since. All 9 of their pilots failed. Every single one. Including Manimal, a show about a guy who could turn into animals. So when Fusco pulled Alf out of that garbage bag and started doing his shtick, the executives didn't see a primetime puppet show. They saw their last chance to prove to their new corporate parents at General Electric that somebody at NBC still knew how to pick a winner. Desperation has a funny way of making terrible ideas sound brilliant. Producer Bernie Brillstein, who managed Jim Henson himself and considered Henson the best puppeteer in the business, initially wanted nothing to do with Fusco's fuzzy alien. But once he saw the character in action, even Brillstein had to admit the thing was funny. NBC greenlit the show, and Alf premiered on September 22, 1986, opposite MacGyver and Kate and Allie.
Hey, hold it! Flag on the play! You're paying these people? I'll do it!
It finished the season ranked number 28. Not bad for a show that NBC only commissioned, because literally everything else they touched turned to garbage. Number 14. The set was built, 4 feet off the ground, with trapdoors everywhere. Building the entire set on a platform raised 4 feet off the ground, then cutting trapdoors into the floor at random intervals so your lead actor can pop up anywhere he wants. That's what the ALF production team did, and it turned every single take into a game of don't fall into the abyss. Paul Fusco operated all from below the set, which meant the floor was essentially Swiss cheese. Trapdoors had to open and close multiple times during a scene, and they had to reset perfectly, or someone was going to break an ankle. The cast had to memorize where every hole was located and navigate around them while delivering their lines, hitting their marks, and pretending to interact naturally with a puppet that may or may not pop up in the right spot. One trapdoor malfunction could stop production for an hour. Multiple malfunctions could stretch a scene that should take 20 minutes into a half-day nightmare. Anne Shadeen later said a 30-minute episode took 20 to 25 hours to shoot. Most sitcoms at the time could knock out an episode in 4 to 6 hours with a live audience.
But I've got an instinctive rapport with kids. It's a gift that all Melmacians share.
Alf took 4 times as long with no audience because nobody could see the puppet secrets. The cast was basically performing a high-wire act over a pit of holes while a furry brown puppet got all the funny lines. Number 13, Max Wright attacked the puppet and screamed, "We're all puppets." By the 4th season, Max Wright had completely lost it. According to multiple sources, including comedian Artie Langs, who later worked with Wright on The Norm Show, Wright became so frustrated during one particularly brutal shoot that he physically attacked the Alf puppet. Not just grabbed it, attacked it, full-on crazed assault while screaming at the top of his lungs, "Put us all on sticks, we're all puppets." A classically trained theater actor had been driven to the point where he was wrestling a furry puppet while having an existential crisis about the nature of performance art. The producers had to pull him off. Pull a grown man off a puppet. And here's what makes this story perfect.
My, you are blessed, aren't you?
As passionate as your argument sounds, Alf, the answer's still no.
Despite Wright's complete mental breakdown, despite his later admission that he was hugely eager to have it over with, Alf was wonderful. Audiences loved it. The chemistry between Wright's bitter, put-upon father and the wisecracking alien was comedy gold. Wright eventually told People magazine, "It doesn't matter what I felt or what the days were like. Alf brought people a lot of joy." But on that last night of filming, Wright didn't stick around. The moment they wrapped the final take, he walked straight to his dressing room, grabbed his bags, went to his car, and disappeared. No goodbyes, no rap party, just gone. Number 12. One of the writers was a heroin addict, writing while high. Jerry Stahl, who would later become famous for his memoir, Permanent Midnight, was working on Alf while struggling with severe substance abuse. We're talking about a guy making $5,000 a week, writing family-friendly sitcom scripts while spending $6,000 a week on his addiction. Stahl wrote for several major shows in the late 80s, including Moonlighting and 30-something. But Alf held a special place in his chaotic career. In one episode Stahl wrote called La Cucaracha, a giant cockroach crawls out of a bag of food from Alf's spaceship. According to other writers, we can figure out where that one came from. The best part? Nobody really noticed or cared as long as he kept turning in scripts. Hollywood in the 80s had a pretty high tolerance for writers with chemical dependencies, especially if they were productive. Stahl eventually got clean and wrote Permanent Midnight about the whole experience. The book was adapted into a 1998 film starring Ben Stiller, where the Alf-like show is renamed Mr. Chompers. In one scene, Stiller's version of Stahl experiences troubling hallucinations involving the puppet from the show. Stahl later said the greatest jokes were the ones NBC censors wouldn't let them use. Given his condition at the time, that's probably for the best. Number 11. A kid microwaved a cat after watching the show. NBC executives were already nervous about Alf's cat-eating jokes, because the show's premise included an alien who considered cats a delicacy on his home planet of Melmac. Alf spent a lot of time chasing Lucky, the Tanner family cat, and making references to feline cuisine.
Oh, there's nothing more beautiful than the sight of a mother holding her freshly swaddled babe to her bosom.
Then NBC got a report that made everyone's blood run cold. A child had placed a cat in a microwave after watching the show. According to Paul Fusco, Alf's creator, some kid put his cat in a microwave because Alf tried to do that once. We had to be real careful. Actually, Alf never microwaved a cat, but kids apparently thought he did, or wanted to see what would happen, and that was enough to send NBC into full panic mode. This created an awkward problem. Alf also drank beer in the pilot episode. He's drinking with Brian, a child, and when confronted about it, the writers pointed out that Alf is 229 years old. NBC didn't care. Kids were watching. Alf needed to be a good influence. So after the first season, Alf stopped drinking on screen. The cat jokes became more sporadic and less explicit. An alien who survived the nuclear destruction of his home planet had to watch his behavior because American children couldn't be trusted around microwaves. Number 10, kids tried to electrocute themselves, so NBC had to reshoot an entire episode. In the Season 1 episode, Try to Remember, Alf decides to turn the bathtub into a homemade jacuzzi by bringing Kate's electric mixer into the tub with him. Predictably, he gets electrocuted, receives a massive shock, and ends up with amnesia. The writers thought they were being responsible. They ended the episode with a public service announcement featuring Alf himself, warning kids not to mix water and electricity. Didn't matter. A child attempted to recreate the scene and nearly electrocuted himself. NBC ordered the entire opening sequence reshot. Gone was the electric mixer. In its place, a manual egg beater. Instead of a zap sound effect, viewers now heard a scream and a thud. Alf's amnesia was no longer caused by electrocution, but by slipping in the shower and hitting his head. Every mention of being shocked was removed. And here's the truly absurd part. The episode already had a warning. Alf literally told kids not to do this, but kids being kids, some of them heard "Don't mix electricity and water," and thought, "I bet I could do it better than Alf." From that point on, every script had to be vetted for potential child endangerment scenarios. A show about an alien who eats cats and drinks beer became one of the most carefully monitored programs on television. Number 9, a puppet sitcom, became the first show ever broadcast in Dolby Surround Sound. When Alf premiered in September 1986, it became the first TV show ever broadcast in Dolby Surround Sound, not the first sitcom, the first show, period. Prior to Alf, all U.S. television programming was broadcast in either mono sound or simple 2-channel stereo. If you had a proper sound system hooked up to your TV in 1986, you could experience Alf in full surround glory with subwoofer support. Think about the absurdity of this for a moment. A sitcom about a furry puppet who ate cats and couldn't leave a garage became the technical pioneer that brought theatrical sound quality to American living rooms. Not a prestige drama, not a groundbreaking news program, a puppet show. From there, surround sound grew throughout the industry. In the present day, we have broadcasts with multi-channel, complete surround sound, so you can enjoy your crime dramas and sci-fi shows with true wraparound effects. You can thank Alf for that technological leap, although honestly it's hard to imagine what specifically benefited from surround sound on Alf. The crash landing in the pilot, Alf's voice coming from inside the walls, the sound of Max Wright's sanity cracking in glorious 360-degree audio. Regardless, Alf proved that technical innovation and complete production chaos could coexist peacefully. Number 8. The guy in the Aleph suit got fired for no reason and still got paid. When Alf needed to walk, run, or appear in full-body shots, that was Michu Meszaros' job. Meszaros was a 2'9" Hungarian circus performer who'd worked with Ringling Brothers before becoming the man inside the Alf costume. He was uncredited in the role, listed only as an Alf assistant, but he was essential for any scene where you saw the whole alien moving around. After 2 seasons, they fired him. Just like that. No explanation. "I left after 2 years. They fired me. I never found out why," Meszaros said before his death in 2016. "Overnight it went from me being in the Alf suit to no more. The producer didn't like me for some reason. I told my manager, he doesn't like me, he's gonna fire me." But here's where it gets interesting. Even though Meszaros was let go, they kept using footage they had already shot of him in the opening credits and in later episodes, which meant he continued to receive residuals for years, even though he wasn't working on the show anymore. He got paid for being fired. Meszaros went on to appear in films and became good friends with Michael Jackson, becoming a frequent guest at Neverland Ranch. When Meszaros died in 2016, headlines read, "Alf actor dies," even though most viewers had no idea he'd been part of the show. Number 7. NBC ended the show on a cliffhanger, then ghosted everyone. After 4 seasons and 102 episodes, NBC canceled Alf in 1990. But they didn't tell anyone until it was too late. The series finale ended with Alf making contact with other survivors from Melmac, who were coming to rescue him. He says goodbye to the Tanners, walks outside to meet the rescue ship, and instead gets captured by the alien task force. The episode ends with Alf being surrounded by military personnel, about to be taken away for experimentation, to be continued. Except it wasn't. NBC pulled the plug without giving the writers a chance to wrap up the story. Paul Fusco and Tom Patchett had been told they'd get at least 1 more episode to resolve the cliffhanger. NBC even suggested they might get a full 5th season or a TV movie. None of that happened. Max Wright found out the show was over while he was on vacation. A couple sitting near him at breakfast mentioned they had read Alf had been canceled. That's how the star of the show learned his job was done, from strangers at a restaurant. The cliffhanger sat unresolved for 6 years, while NBC executives slept soundly. Finally, in 1996, ABC produced a TV movie called Project Alf that picked up where the series left off. There was just one problem. Number 6. The reunion movie had 0 Tanners because nobody wanted to come back. When Project Alf finally aired on ABC in February 1996, 6 years after the series ended, fans were excited to see what happened to their favorite alien and the family that had hidden him. None of the original cast appeared in the movie. Not Max Wright, not Anne Shadeen, not Andrea Elson or Benji Gregory. The Tanners were written out with a single line explaining they'd been placed in the Witness Protection Program and relocated to Iceland. They had turned down Mozambique because they were unhappy with the education system there. 4 years of family bonding, and they get shipped off to Iceland and never mentioned again. The movie starred William O'Leary and Jensen Daggett as two military scientists who rescue Alf from the Air Force base where he's been held for 6 years. Martin Sheen played the villain. It was competent. It was fine. It was absolutely nothing, like the show that fans had loved. Reviewers and fans universally agreed that without the Tanners, the movie felt hollow. Project. Alf was supposed to give fans closure. Instead, it gave them a generic 90s TV movie with Alf cracking jokes at people they'd never met before. The movie did resolve the cliffhanger. Alf survived and was declared an ambassador to Earth. But nobody cared about Alf the ambassador. They cared about Alf the family member, and that family was in Iceland. Now I have a quick question. If you could bring back any 80s sitcom for one more season, which would it be? Alf, Perfect Strangers, Small Wonder, and hey, if you're enjoying this trip back to the golden age of puppets and trapdoors, tap that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get back to Melmac with number 5. Number 5. The teenage daughter developed bulimia. From trying to stay skinny, Andrea Elson was cast as teenage daughter Lynn Tanner when she was still a kid. Then, as tends to happen to teenage girls, her body started developing. She got breasts, she got hips, and she hated it. I was this skinny little twig when I started, and then I started to get breasts and hips, and I didn't like it, Elson said. I just wanted to be stick skinny. By the second season, Elson had developed bulimia. She was purging, restricting, and spiraling into a full eating disorder while filming a family sitcom about an alien who ate cats. The pressure to maintain a certain look, combined with the already intense stress of working 25-hour days on a show where everyone was miserable, pushed her into dangerous territory. After the show ended in 1990, Elson became obsessed with exercise. She'd spend 2 hours on a treadmill 5 days a week. She didn't find peace until she got pregnant in 1997, 7 years after Alf ended. Only then did she start to recover and accept her body. Looking back, Elson said, "If Alf had gone one more year, everybody would have lost it." The show was physically, mentally, and emotionally destroying the people who made it. Elson eventually became a yoga instructor and has spoken openly about her eating disorder and recovery. Number 4. The mom called it a big dysfunctional family with no joy on set. Anne Sheedine, who played Mother Kate Tanner, couldn't hide how miserable it was. There was no joy on the set, she told People magazine in 2000. It was a technical nightmare, extremely slow, hot, and tedious. If you had a scene with Alf, it took centuries. A 30-minute show took 25 hours to shoot. But Shadine's real frustration came from the adults on set. While she was fond of her on-screen children, she said some of the adults had difficult personalities. She described the overall vibe as a big dysfunctional family. Shadine was essentially saying that the people making a show about a dysfunctional family with an alien house guest were themselves a dysfunctional family, and then she dropped this bomb. It's astonishing that Alf really was wonderful, and that word never got out what a mess our set really was. For 4 years, from 1986 to 1990, the cast and crew maintained a perfect facade. Nobody talked to the press. Nobody leaked stories about the fights, the tension, or the mental breakdowns. The show went out every week, audiences loved it, and behind the scenes, it was complete chaos. It wasn't until a decade later that the truth started coming out. Alf was wonderful. The people who made it were miserable. Both things can be true. Number 3, they created a backup alien called Ralph just for rehearsals. To avoid wear and tear on the main ALF puppet, which was expensive and time-consuming to repair or replace, the crew used a backup rehearsal puppet. They called it R-Alf, which stood for Rehearsal Alien Life Form. R-Alfie was a cheaper, cruder version of the real thing. He looked rough. He was battered from being thrown around during rehearsals. Sometimes Paul Fusco didn't even use R-Alf during rehearsals. He'd just substitute his hand. The actors would spend hours rehearsing scenes, with a guy's hand sticking up through the floor, pretending to be an alien. Then when it was time to actually film, the real Alf would appear, and they'd have to do it all over again. This meant the cast was essentially performing every scene twice, once with Ari Alf or a hand, working out the technical details and figuring out where everyone needed to stand to avoid falling through the trap doors. then again with the real puppet, hoping everything they'd just rehearsed would actually work when it mattered. The existence of Rolf is somehow both practical and completely ridiculous. Rolf never got screen credit. He was the stunt double nobody saw, the rehearsal stand-in who made the magic possible by being thoroughly unmagical. Somewhere in a storage unit, Rolf probably still exists, a battered testament to the weird priorities of 1980s sitcom production. The real Alf got all the glory. Rolf did all the work. Number 2, NBC. Admitted canceling the show was a big mistake. After NBC canceled Alf in 1990, the network had time to reflect on their decision. And according to Paul Fusco, they realized they'd made a huge mistake. NBC executive Brandon Tartikoff later told Fusco, "It was a big mistake that we canceled your show. This is the same network that couldn't be bothered to inform the cast before canceling it. The same network that promised a wrap-up episode and then just ghosted everyone." By the time Tartikoff admitted the mistake, it was too late. The cast had scattered, Max Wright had walked off and never looked back. The moment was gone. The ratings tell the story. Alf finished its second season ranked number 5 in the Nielsen ratings, 5th in the entire country. That's a monster hit. Season 3 held steady at number 10. Even Season 4, when the show moved to Saturday nights, television's graveyard shift, it was still pulling respectable numbers at 39th place. NBC canceled a top 40 show that had been top 5 just 2 years earlier because they wanted to make room for new programming. They gambled that they could do better. They couldn't. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air took Alf's time slot and became a hit, but NBC had room for both shows. They just decided they didn't want to deal with the technical headaches anymore, so they cut it loose, realized they'd made a mistake, and by then it was too late to fix it. Number 1, Jim Henson's manager almost passed, because why bother with another puppet show? Before Alf was a hit, Paul Fusco had to get past Bernie Brillstein, the producer who could greenlight the whole thing. Brillstein managed Jim Henson, the Jim Henson, creator of the Muppets, the man who'd basically invented the modern art of television puppetry. When he heard that Fusco wanted to pitch a puppet show, his first reaction was basically, "Why would I waste my time?" Henson was the gold standard. Henson had made puppetry into high art. Henson had created Kermit, Miss Piggy, Big Bird, and an entire universe of characters that defined childhoods. Why would Brillstein bother with some unknown magician and puppeteer who had a character in a garbage bag? But Brillstein agreed to the meeting, probably out of professional courtesy. Fusco walked in, pulled Alf out of the brown paper bag, and started performing. And Brillstein laughed. Actually laughed. Despite managing the greatest puppeteer who ever lived, despite having impossibly high standards, Brillstein thought Alf was hilarious. He greenlit the pitch to NBC. The show got made. Alf became a phenomenon. Fusco later said, "I didn't sell the show. Alf did." The character worked. The voice worked. The attitude worked. Even someone who'd spent years working with the best puppeteer in history could see that this wisecracking, cat-eating alien from Melmac had something special. Bernie Brillstein took a chance on a character in a garbage bag because it made him laugh. Sometimes that's all it takes. And there you have it. 15 weird facts about the show that made America fall in love with an alien who couldn't go outside, ate cats, drank beer, and somehow convinced NBC that primetime puppetry was a good idea. Which facts surprised you the most? Which ones did we miss? Let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more nostalgic TV deep dives. And until next time, no problem is too big or too small when you've got an alien in your kitchen, even if the actors making it happen wanted to flee to Iceland themselves.